Hello, hello, beautiful ones. How are we doing? I haven't updated the banner, have I? Let me do that now. 2 seconds. We are officially on day 2. Day 2, 7 days to sacred mornings. As you hop on and join me, say hello. Tell me how you're doing today. Thank you so much for coming along. Bear with me while I find the video so I can see your comments. Hi, Kim, gorgeous. Lovely to have you with us. Hope you are having a beautiful day. So today we have got another practice to look at. As before, I'm going to try my best not to talk too much and stay on track. And so we can spend as much time as possible in the practices together, really enjoying that time. Hi, Deb's gorgeous. How are you? Hope you're having a beautiful day. I've got a slight delay on the comments on my phone. Louise, gorgeous. You haven't had time to listen to yesterday's. Don't worry, lovely. Don't worry. You can always go back. And for those of you that have signed up, you have been receiving the replays as well, hopefully. So you would have received the replay this morning with a little bit more information, or the information more condensed. So hopefully that's super useful for you to come back to time and time again whenever you need it. But I have to admit, there's something nice, right, about doing this in community, about doing this with the support of other people around you. So, you know, feel free to interact. Tell us about your experiences. You know, I know lots of you chat away and I love it. So please do, because it makes me feel like we're in this together. Hi, Susan, gorgeous. Sam, hope you're doing well. Lovely to have you here. So yesterday we started looking at mindfulness and a practice where we can start bringing mindfulness to the body, the emotional state, to the mind. And we can really start bringing that awareness into our days, that curiosity mindset, so that we're not getting pulled into judgment. And that kind of leads us on to the practice for today. What I wanted to do is bring you practices that were going to help you generate an energetic, an emotional, mental state that was actually going to serve you, rather than give you, you know, some of the more obscure practices which you know are beautiful in their own way and might be more aligned to, say, a particular path or a particular lineage. But what I was keen to do is give you practices that were going to help you access this state of abundance, this state of generating abundance in your life. And when I'm talking about abundance, of course, that includes financial, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? We're talking about abundance being like our natural state of being in that place where you just feel heart open, where you can cultivate relationships which are loving and nourishing and nurturing, and you get to operate in your day with flow and ease and grace, rather than being in like a battle energy. And that kind of leads me on to what I wanted to talk to you about, which is this difference between operating from our ego state and operating from, well, it's got many different terms. So we could call it higher self. We could call it true self. The Buddhists call it our Buddha nature. It could be, from a Christian point of view, this might be deemed like working with the Holy Spirit. From a psychology point of view, it could be operating from that place of self-actualization. So the truth is, it doesn't matter what term we use, right? It doesn't matter whether we're on a Christian path or a Buddhist path or a Vedic path, or, you know, whether we are not interested in religion or spirituality at all and connect more with like psychology and personal development. It doesn't matter. But it's this idea that we have this ego state, and then we have this, I tend to think of it as like our true selves. It's our truest nature. And there's nothing wrong with ego. I want to caveat this with, there's nothing wrong with ego. It is right for us to have our ego, to operate with ego. That's absolutely natural, because we live in a world where it's required. We need to have our ego. But one of the traps that we can fall into is when we are operating purely from ego, from an unhealthy ego, so our ego is running us rather than us running our ego. So the alternative to that is to operate from our truest self, from our highest self, from this place of our highest state of being. And there's ways that we can kind of differentiate between the two and figure out which part is taking hold right now, which part is leading the way. So I wanted to kind of run you through those today, and I'll put this in the email as well so you can come back to it. But when we're operating from our ego self, or our ego self is running us, we fall into being judgmental. So you'll remember yesterday we were cultivating the opposite of that, which is that curiosity mindset. So that's more our higher self. Our ego also can be, is very black and white, loves a label, loves to put things into nice, neat little boxes. So we'll notice this with ourselves, right? In the respect of, we'll say things like, oh, I'm just a messy person. I'm really lazy. You might have nice things as well. You know, I'm really kind. I love this thing. I don't love this thing. Our ego state loves to make it all matter of fact. That's it. So it will say things like, I'm laughing because my ego makes me laugh. It will say things like, you know, if you're having a bad day, your ego will convince you that's it. You know, that's it. You're having a bad day forever. It's the worst thing possible. It loves to like catastrophize everything. And we'll have a look later in the week about how we can cultivate a healthier ego as well. Our ego is in that mindset of I, me. So it's mainly concerned with, what do I get out of it? What's the impact on me? It might say things like, how dare they treat me that way? Or this thing happened to me. Do you know what I mean? It's very centered around I, me. I kind of led to this. I kind of touched on this, but it's often concerned around what's in it for me. Why am I doing that thing? What's in it for me? What am I going to get from it? So it can be quite self-involved, selfish. If I'm honest, we need a bit of selfishness to keep us alive. So it's not a bad thing. But when we're permanently in that state, it's not a good place to be. Doesn't feel good. It likes to project. So it will say things like, that person's bad, or that person's better than me. It likes to form hierarchy. So they're a good person, they're a bad person. That thing's right, that thing's wrong. You know, they're better at that than me. That, you know, I'm terrible at that thing, or I'm better at that thing, you know. We often see this when people find a spiritual path and start doing spiritual work. We have this little fight with our ego at one point, because the ego will start convincing you that you're a better person because you're doing the spiritual work. So it's a sneaky little monkey, I tell you. The ego is interested in validation. So it wants to be told it's good. It wants to be told it's kind. It wants to be told it's doing the right thing. It wants to be told that it's, it likes to be inflated. But also, we can become a little bit addicted to the negative labels, right? So we can internalize the negative side of that. So it could be, oh, I'm rubbish at this. I'm not very good at that. So it likes to put us in these little boxes, these neat boxes of good, bad, right, wrong, really black and white. We can often find that if we're operating from our ego, it feels a bit like it's a struggle, like we're having to fight through things because we're attached to the thoughts that are going on in our head. We're attached to the story that we're making up about the thing that we're doing. So, for example, instead of going to do like the washing up, you'll go to do the washing up and it would be like, can't believe I'm doing the washing up again. Why does no one around the house actually help me? I hate doing the washing up. Why don't I get a cleaner? Do you know? And then it will make up these stories that will make this act of just washing up like the hardest thing in the world. And before you know it, you've spun yourself into this really negative place. And I should say, I'm talking here about like an unhealthy ego. And like I say, we will go into cultivating a really healthy ego later in the week. The other thing is, well, with the ego is if it's giving or if it's doing something, it's doing it because of what it's going to receive. So, for example, you'll do something kind, or I might do something kind for my husband, but I'm doing that to get validation. I'm doing that because I want him to do the same thing for me, or there's something I'm trying to get in return, or I might be doing it, but begrudgingly. I'll make dinner, but I'll do it begrudgingly and resent everyone as I'm doing it. So this is how our ego can kind of make our days feel like the opposite to abundant, right? It can make us feel like everything's a struggle, everything's a battle, like we're fighting all the time. So the alternative to that is us operating from this place of higher self, truest self. From a Vedic perspective, this would be like our own divinity, that divinity that lives within us. And if that word triggers you in some way, I invite you to just witness that, be curious about that. But from a Vedic perspective, we are the universe experiencing itself. So we're all divinity in motion. And I think if you look around in nature, that is just so easy to see, right? The divinity within like an oak tree, or the magnificence of a willow tree. But sometimes we forget that about ourselves. So when we're operating from the higher self, it feels the opposite. We feel abundant. We feel in flow. We can tackle things without even having to use that word tackle. It just feels like we just do it, right? We do what needs to be done. We've got ease and grace and flow, and everything gets done effortlessly. And like we can find in those times that time just goes. It's like when I'm operating in my business, like the time flies. I always say this on my workshops, like, how have we got through an hour? I don't feel like I've been talking for an hour. And so it just feels easeful. So the more that we can tap ourselves in to this higher self, to this authentic self, the easier life feels, the more abundant life feels, the more abundant we feel about who we are and what we have to offer and our place in this world. So you'll know if you're operating from this, because you will feel that. There's also a sense of freedom in that, because you're not confining yourself to this identity that your ego's created. You're not limiting yourself to these little boxes. You're giving yourself the freedom to just be curious and find out and play. And there's no fear of failure or no fear of potential outcomes, because it's in that kind of play energy. You tend to find is why your perspective shifts less from me, what's in it for me, to what can I give? How can I be of service? How can I give back? How can I, there's just something really beautiful about that feeling of being really heart open and just wanting to give back. It's like a really beautiful, it fills up your heart. And when we're in this space, we understand, or when we're in this perspective, we understand that no one's better or worse than anyone else. Yeah, some people might have more money. Some people might have a bigger house. Some people, oh God, my heart just broke then thinking about it. I was going to say, and some people might be homeless. Some people may not have their basic needs met. But this isn't a reflection of them. This isn't a reflection of their intrinsic value. We're all beautiful beings that have our own unique gifts to share with the world. And so when we can operate from that place of how can I be of service, the universe, and this is not just my perspective, this is the perspective of the Vedas, this is the perspective, it's talked about in the Bible, it's talked, Sufi poets like Rumi talked about this. It's been talked about by, positive psychology. In so many different ways, this has been spoken about and shown to be evident. And it's this, when we operate from this place of heart open giving, we tend to receive back just as much, if not more. And it's like this beautiful exchange that happens with the universe. The more we operate from this place, the more we receive. And the truth is, that's not why we do it, right? Because it just genuinely feels good to be operating from that heart open space where we do get to receive back, and we do get to appreciate that. But the giving is equally as beautiful. It's like Christmas. I don't know about you, but I love giving my kids gifts at Christmas and watching that face. When their face goes, like, it's the best feeling in the world, right? But the truth is, we have the opportunity to do that every single day. And I'm not talking about just giving physical things. In every interaction we have with someone, we have the opportunity to give them our attention, our presence. We have the opportunity to be loving and kind, and not from a place of I should, but from a place of it feels good to do it. It feels really good to be in that space of heart open, being really present, being really there, sending them good wishes, genuinely wanting the best for them. That feels really good to operate from that space. And then what happens, right? You're loving and kind and heart open to the people around you. You get that back twofold. And what I also love about this is it has that ripple effect. So we've all experienced it, right? Like, you've had a beautiful morning with perhaps your other half, or your children and you've really felt, oh my God, I'm so lucky. And then as you go about your day and you interact with other people, you unconsciously start passing that on to them. And then them in turn will start passing that on to other people. So, we know this, right? We have to be the change we want to see in the world. And I don't know about you, but the world I want is loving and kind. And it's where people take care of each other and they're supportive and they don't judge. They don't put people in boxes. So if that's what I want to see in the world, that's what I need to cultivate within myself. So I hope that's all making sense. Let me know if that's making sense. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times. But remembering to cultivate it within yourself, that's the tough bit, right? When life gets busy, when the challenges start piling in, when it feels like the universe is trying to teach you something, right? I've shared with you, I've had many challenges over the years, but I remember this one particular year where it just felt like, I can remember at one point looking up at the sky and just going, seriously, like, is there anything else you're going to throw at me? So we all have those times, but the more we can cultivate this, the easier life feels. Oh, who is that? Susan? Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. Lovely. Kim, you're working so hard on gratitude and mindset at the moment. Perfect. Because that's the tough bit, right? We've all heard these things 1,000 times. And I actually posted something today and it was a bit tongue in cheek. But if we're not careful, we can go around collecting these modalities, collecting these tools, collecting these techniques, collecting these practices, but don't use them. And actually, they don't work if you don't use them. So, and I say that as someone that has fallen into that trap a million times. So there's like no judgment here about that. But the more that we can get ourselves into the habit of actually cultivating this mindset, the better. And that's why I try to bring this element of truest self into my morning practice. And so today's practice, after a very long intro, sorry, ladies, I haven't stayed. I say ladies, there's also gents in here. Sorry, gents. I haven't particularly stayed on track, but let's move into the practice, shall we? So I invite you to get comfy, get cozy, do what you need to do to settle in. And as before, I would highly recommend, if you can, that you sit up for meditation. Like I say, it allows you to focus better. It brings more energy to your practice. There are some practices that are perfectly aligned to laying down. This isn't one of them. However, if you have to lay down due to mobility issues, I've been there, and yeah, that's absolutely fine. But if you can, try to sit, and sit with a tall spine. So as and when you're ready, gently closing your eyes, and as we did before, you may want to take in a nice deep breath, filling up the front, the sides, the back of the lungs. Holding it at the top just for a moment before releasing any tension with a bit of a sigh or an out breath. And doing that again, nice deep breath in. You may even want to hunch your shoulders a little bit just to emphasize that tension that you're going to release on the out breath. dropping those shoulders as you breathe out. And doing that again one last time. Nice deep breath in. Again, if you want to, you can hunch up those shoulders and then let them drop as you breathe out. And we're just going to very quickly revisit our practice from yesterday. So taking a moment to just be mindful of the gentle rise and fall of the breath. And we're not trying to breathe in a particular way. We're not trying to control the breath here. We're just bringing our awareness to whatever it's doing in this moment. Is this current breath quite deep or shallow? Remembering that neither one of those is better than the other. Does it move smoothly into the body today? Has it got more texture? Is it wanting to create a steady rhythm? Or is it creating a song of its own? And shifting that awareness now to the emotional body. Are there any emotions whirling around in this moment? And again, if you find them, neither one of these or any of these are better or worse than any other. They're all just energy and motion. You don't need to fix them or change them. You can just watch and observe. And shifting that awareness to the mind now, noticing what the mental body is doing in this moment. Is it quite quiet? Or is it noisy today? Is it staying on one topic or jumping around? No need to get pulled into it. Does it have a particular tone of voice today? Or perhaps it sounds like someone you know. And finally, shifting that awareness to the physical body. How does that feel in this moment? And if you find it helpful, you can do a gentle body scan with your awareness, scanning from the top of the head through the facial features into the shoulders and arms and hands. Moving through the front and the back of the torso. Into the hips and legs, feet and toes. And again, remembering not to get pulled into labels or judgments of sensations. Pain can just be a sensation that you're witnessing. And to further help strengthen our connection, deepen our connection to our truest self, it can be helpful to open up our heart space. And one of the quickest ways we can do that is through a practice of gratitude. But the thing is, gratitude isn't meant to be listed, it's meant to be felt. So you may want to put a hand on your heart space. And I invite you to bring to mind the things in your life that cultivate that feeling of how lucky am I? And that can be something so small as your favorite cup that brings a smile to your face when you have your morning cuppa. It can be the feeling of your favorite blanket draped over your knees as you meditate. Maybe the sound of the rain on the window outside and how that soothes your soul and invites you to hunker down. It might be the sight of a sunset and the beautiful colors that move across the sky. It could be the people in your life that you feel so blessed to have known, to have found. It could be a particular book that you love to come back to time and time again. Or the fact that we have the technology and access to this wisdom to sit here together and practice these practices in community. It's pretty awesome, right? Blows your mind. And seeing if you can almost allow that feeling of gratitude to grow. See if with nothing more than your intention, you can allow that feeling to get stronger and expand through yourself, through your body. Expand into every cell of your being, that feeling of how lucky am I? Thank you, thank you, thank you. How lucky am I? Till it feels like your heart just wants to burst open. And you feel that smile creeping on your face. And that heart space opening up. And from this place, from this energetic resonance, asking yourself, what can I give today? How can I be of service? And allow those answers to just come to you. And if you're finding the answers are limited or quiet, or you don't quite understand the answer, that's fine. You can ask yourself the question again. Where can I give today? How can I be of service? And feel free to rephrase that in a way that resonates with you. And as and when you feel ready, slowly opening your eyes, coming back into the room, back into this space. I would so love to know what came through for you as we did that practice together. Tomorrow, we're going to go into this a little bit deeper, into this idea of how we can be most of service to this world. And not from a place of ego, not from a place of depleting ourselves, not from a place of struggle or fight or battle, but this ease and flow and grace and abundant type energy that makes our days just feel magnificent and magical. So I would love to know how you found that today. And as before, I'm going to pull a card like we did yesterday. And as before, I would invite you to just consider what this card means for you. No one else. Not what the book says. Your subconscious will know exactly the message you need to receive from this, so trust that. Anyone else feel lighter? I feel lighter. I so needed that today, actually. I hadn't realised how much I needed that today. There it is. It's that one. Your card for today is Medicine Guardian. And it says, be open to healing information. Seems rather appropriate. There we go. I'm not very good at figuring out which way. Like everything's backwards in the camera. So there you go. Medicine Guardian, be open to healing information. Kim, you went so deep into that now you can't recall what came up for you. Love it. It came back to you later. Oh, I'm so pleased you enjoyed that. I love the feeling when I show kindness to others and not expecting anything in return. Yeah, it's a beautiful space, right? The more we can operate from that space, the better life is. You are so welcome, lovely. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Susan. So, we all know about gratitude, right? We all know how good it makes us feel. We all know that we should be doing it. Should be. Another should. Another ego. But the more that we can set ourselves up from this, to me, it's not just about gratitude, right? It's that opening up our heart space so that actually we can operate from our truest self, from our Buddha nature, from the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, from self-actualization. It doesn't matter. But from this heart open place and be the change that we want to see in the world. And, I certainly know in my life that the more I operate from this space, the more I receive in return. But like I say, even if that wasn't the case, I'd still do it because it feels good. It feels good to be up here, right, in this heart space. So I hope you've taken something from that today, something that you can either adapt or strengthen, or just a reminder to bring this back into your morning practice. Like I say, tomorrow we're going to go a bit deeper into this in regards to our own unique purpose or dharma in this world. And we'll be looking at the teachings from what the Vedas teach us, as well as many other lineages that have a similar thought pattern. And in fact, I'm trying to think of one that wouldn't correspond with this, and I can't off the top of my head. So we'll be looking at our truest self and how we can utilize that to its fullest potential, so we can fulfill our purpose here in this time and space, and give our life a little bit more meaning. So I hope that sounds good to you. I hope you can join me for that here, 3 p.m. GMT tomorrow. I think that's it. I'll love you and leave you. Have a gorgeous evening. See you soon.